Hey everybody, my name is Indigo, and my friend Synistxrr and I are going to be surviving 100 days in the Stoneblock 3 mod pack. So if you guys want to know more about what this mod pack looks like, tune in and I will try my best to explain to you what it consists of. Even after playing it, I'm not really sure what happened, so let's go ahead and refresh my memory. First off, we spawn in a library room and here we are showing off our new custom tailor-made suits. We used to be two grown men cosplaying as the Greek god Ares in his armor, and we both opted to wear a suit, but mine is obviously more expensive than his. And enough of the braggadocio, it is now time to step through the portal. And there are several options to determine what the spawn area looks like for you, and we opted for the one that wasn't the basic original design, but we didn't want to stray too far away from the original feeling that was intended. And usually the two of us would look through the mod pack quickly before actually playing it, but we didn't do that this time around for some reason, and we're just going into this completely blind. And now being in an underground cave, it obviously meant that there weren't going to be any trees ready for me to chop down, so it was time for me to punch the stone until I got a stone pebble. I kept doing that until next thing you know I had 30 of these stone pebbles. I then learned how to make a whole cobblestone out of those pebbles, and by the time I was done doing that, my friend already had made a cobblestone crafting table, which is the same recipe as a regular one but with cobblestone instead, but I didn't know that at the time. I then used the cobblestone to make some rods out of them, which I thought would act the same as sticks, and to an extent I was correct, but I couldn't use them to make a pickaxe like I thought I would be able to. I told my friend that I couldn't craft a pickaxe with the stone rods, and that's when he scolded me for thinking of this like normal Minecraft. He then informed me that I had to learn this mod pack, and instead I had to make a hammer. So I made one, and now I was able to break the stones to get whole blocks of cobblestone. I took a look through the quest log and found something called a crook, which would allow you to get saplings, seeds, and other resources from certain blocks. And as you can see here, these are the blocks along with the probabilities of certain drops from cooking them. But how do we get these blocks if we are surrounded by stone, you may ask? Well, if you hammer cobblestone, you get gravel. Hammer gravel and you get dirt. Hammer dirt and you get sand. Hammer sand and you get dust. Hammer dust and you get, well, nothing. That's where the cycle ends. But do some more hammering in your mom's room at night when you're asleep. And with this newfound knowledge, it was now time to hammer blocks and crook them as well. But my friend had to show me how superior he was to me at this mod pack. He showed me his tier 3 cobble generator that he got from the quest log and how he already had multiple saplings. He hasn't played this mod pack before, he was simply just grasping the information given to him better than I was. And the guy told us that after enough mining, either up or down, you can find andesite, then deep slate, and then bedrock. So I was off to get us some andesite. But my hammer broke, so I needed to craft another one. And that's when I noticed that the tree had already grown up, so I was the first one to be able to feel some nice girthy wood in my hand. And I was also wondering why this stone cave was so dark, and that's when I realized that I had my gamma set at the normal level and not all the way up, and it made a huge difference, but it also helped that my friend now had placed torches to light up the place. I was then able to get an iron hammer from the quest, which would definitely be a huge help. And my friend was leading the way early on by handling the create mod and all of its complexities. And little did we know that this mod pack would actually spark a huge interest into the create mod for him, and he would do a lot of stuff with the mod in later worlds, which you guys are going to see of course. And here I sit many months later with absolutely no knowledge on it. He then had me help him with the create mod by cranking this wheel, and it definitely worked up quite an appetite for me, and I even started to starve to death. But he quite literally broke some bread with me, and I had no idea where he had gotten access to the food, but I definitely wasn't going to question the hand that was feeding me. And whatever my friend was doing was able to get us some iron ore, and we were able to smelt it to get iron ingots of course. And he also had something which was able to generate lava, and he was hard carrying for the moment. And I didn't read the tip earlier, which let us know that you can actually twerk for Mother Nature, and that would encourage the wood to grow faster, which is actually pretty similar to real life when you think about it. And since we were pretty new to the area, we obviously didn't have a reliable way to get food to feed ourselves, and we tried to grow some potatoes, but for some reason we weren't able to plant any. And my friend was also able to craft some Tinker's Constructs items, but I didn't really use it throughout the playthrough. He also put some chests down, and the cobble generators were filling them up quite nicely. I also managed to get a diamond somehow, and I also got an egg, and luckily when I threw it down, it actually spawned a chicken, and we were no longer the only source of life down here. I was on the phone at the time, so I excitedly punched my friend in order to show him our new friend. While I was on the phone, I was just doing stuff that I already knew how to do, since I wasn't really in a position to be able to comprehend any new information. And while I was busy on the phone, my friend was busy as well, and he was able to make this contraption which would take certain blocks and turn them into other resources, and this was called washing materials. And there was a notification letting us know that a loot beast spawned nearby, so we went over to go see what that was about. And we only ended up getting a copper ingot from the bee, so we never worried about finding another one of them again. And my friend was able to get something called a chance cube, and so we mined far away from our base and broke the cube, to which we were encased in ice and water attempting to kill us. And this was our first experience with the chance cubes, but it definitely was not our last. I then went ahead and compressed all of the cobblestone down to make more room for the cobble generator to keep working. I then learned that you can actually hammer the compressed cobble to make it way more efficient than hammering uncompressed cobble, and this allowed us to wash blocks way faster to get materials. And while this was way quicker already, I found something to make this whole process even better. So I spent some time hammering, smelting, and crafting, and I was finally able to craft what I set my eyes out on, the diamond auto hammer. And this would automatically hammer blocks down for us, so we didn't have to. But we did have a little trouble figuring out exactly how to use the thing, and we tried placing blocks all around it to see the orientation of where the auto hammer worked, but no matter the position of the blocks, it never ended up working. And after trying to use all 5 of our combined brain cells, we decided this was too much thinking, and we had to take a break from all of this and go break another chance cube. This one actually spawned a bedrock maze in which I had to find a sign somewhere inside of it. Luckily, I was able to find that sign, which told me to break it in order to beat the maze. So I did just that, and for all of that adrenaline fueled effort, I was rewarded with a single birch plank. Back at the main area, I just googled how to use the auto hammer, to which I found the answer I don't think I ever would have thought of. You had to put a chest on either side of it, acting as an input and an output for the blocks that were able to be hammered. And if you could tell by my cursor, I was more than excited for this breakthrough. No more was I piggybacking off the success of my friend, and I was now making progress by my own doing. And this would be the start of my run for the most valuable player award. We then took the auto hammer to the cobble generator and introduced the two, and the idea we had successfully worked. I then went ahead and made more diamond auto hammers to complete the assembly line of hammering blocks. And after that, I started to mine out a big area because this initial area was just starting to get crowded and we needed to expand our operations. I also just really wanted to place this no solicitor sign down to prevent the wandering trader from invading our domain with his awful trades. I then spent time grabbing all of the useful ingredients from all of the washing that I did and transferring them over to a new chest. I also upgraded my paxel to a diamond one, and my friend quickly started to make this new area his own and started to place whatever he needed down, because he was the one who mined out all of that stone. I then replaced some chests that he had placed down with some diamond ones to provide more space for everything, but sadly there was no button to quickly organize the chests, so it hurt me to look inside the chest every time and have everything all out of order. But this was the end of our first play session, and what was once incredibly confusing to me was starting to make more and more sense, which only made me want to play and learn more of this mod pack. And the next time we logged on, I spent some time organizing things and smelting everything that needed to be smelted. And with the smelted ores, I was able to put it into the melter and pour it on top of the cobblestone generators to upgrade it. And we didn't quite have enough heat yet to melt diamond blocks, so the gold tier version of them was just going to have to do for now. And next up, I started excavating another area since the first area I mined out was colonized, and food was still a problem for us, and I was able to plant seeds and potatoes this time around. Not sure what exactly changed, but I was fine with not knowing. So I used all of the bone meal we had to get as many potatoes so I could bake them all. And this is my same friend from my previous video where we spent 100 days in the Prominence mod pack. Definitely go check out that video, by the way. But Synistxrr is his name, and I will leave a link down below so you can check out his channel for whenever he decides to upload something. He didn't like how much I referred to him as just my friend in the last video, and he probably hates how I'm still doing it this time around. So for the rest of the video, I instead will be calling him my companion. And in this new area, I started to place down things that we would need. But I didn't finish as we saw something on the map which appeared to be a dungeon, and we decided to head over immediately. And what seemed to be an easy adventure at first quickly showed its difficulties when there were strong mobs which were called champion variants, and they definitely packed a punch. But we continued through the dungeon, breaking spawners and defeating the endless amount of mobs. And you probably noticed it by now, but once again I messed up all of the audio for this playthrough with none of it recorded. And this is a point where I really wish we had audio, because this was our first time facing adversity in this playthrough and we were definitely struggling. And in true loot goblin fashion, I was grabbing everything I could while prioritizing the best stuff, but I didn't have a backpack and my inventory was already full and we barely explored any of the dungeon up to this point. And with the two of us flirting with death multiple times, my companion was the first one to go on a date with them. And of course this was not a hardcore world, so he just came back and we continued onwards. And I managed to survive through all of the damage and barricade myself in, surviving with only half a heart. But it picked up once again when I was trying to hide myself in some walls and a skeleton shot me right into a creeper which used up my totem. And thank goodness for my totem buff, because I was able to take an unbelievable amounts of damage, and I was even stuck in a cobweb when a spider was coming after me and a skeleton shot it in the back, drawing its aggro, allowing me to hide. And this was some major plot armor I was wearing. And after burrowing in the wall, I mined towards my companion's gravestone so he could retrieve all of his items, and we quickly went back to the safety of our own base and we were done with the action for a while. And now that we were back, I resumed my own project. I managed to upgrade some of our furnaces to diamond ones, so now they smelted items way faster. And then I managed to furnish an entire wall with diamond chests for a bunch of storage. I then looked through the quest log and started on one that would completely revolutionize our socio-economic state. I first made 2 chicken catchers in order to catch chickens. I then made a breeder which would allow me to breed the chickens, and then I made a roost which would generate items based on the chicken inside. And as you can see here, there is a myriad of chickens which all generate different items. And on a side note, from claiming all the rewards, I was able to get a whole ass railgun. But sadly, I didn't have the required resources to use the railgun, so I never got around to actually firing it. And unknowingly, my companion and I were in complete sync, and he built the crafter that I would need to make some of the chickens. So I placed the materials needed to make my first genetically modified chicken, but I was a little confused when I came back and all the ingredients were on the floor, and that's when I realized that I needed to put blue dye instead of straight lapis. But now I had my firstborn chicken, which would generate lapis lazuli. And of course, lapis itself wasn't too useful, but it was the start of something glorious. And next time my companion and I logged on, he showed me how this contraption with these crushing wheels worked, where you would throw items in and it would spit out resources. I then went back to experimenting with my chickens, and if you have the 2 necessary chickens, you could breed them together and possibly breed a whole new type of chicken. And if you had 2 of the same chickens, you could breed them to get a stronger version where they would be able to produce more materials faster. So I spent the next while making new chickens, breeding chickens, upgrading chickens, you know, the whole spiel. And fun fact, I actually used to breed chickens in real life. I did that for quite some time until I realized that they much preferred to breed with another chicken instead of me. I also now had a backpack that I upgraded as much as I could to further support my looting addiction, but I couldn't do a whole lot else as breeding these chickens required constant attention in order to actually progress and not just have them breed for no reason. My companion then showed me what he had been working on. He was exploring the create mod and he was explaining this conveyor line contraption to me where I was just smiling and nodding, not having any clue what this was actually doing. And in between breeding, I was making other contraptions that we would need. For example, this fluid extractor, which would take the latex from logs, and I was much against this machine because in all of my experience, I only used the latex once. It's just so much better without one in the way, if you know what I mean. Now, I forget exactly why I went back to the dungeon. I probably needed something that you could only get from a chest, and this is where I experienced my first death because mobs completely surrounded me and I just stood no chance. I mean, look at the armor I was rocking. I had a diamond helmet and chest plate, my chainmail leggings were almost broken, and I had no boots. I mean, seriously, what the hell was I thinking? I knew how intense this area was, and I went back ill-prepared again to get my gear, and I only brought some baked potatoes, and for that I paid the price once again. I made some gear, and this time around I was able to get my stuff back, and I have no idea why I'm actually out here exploring further, but here I am. I managed to come across this other type of dungeon, and I was trying to deal with creepers from a spawner, and that wasn't going too well, so I just got up out of there and made my way back home. But then my companion and I went back. I guess this whole time I was just trying to get us to the nether portion, since that area spawns around 1,000 blocks away from your starting point. And you would think that I would know what I was doing since I was the one who actually did it, but I guess not. Obviously we managed to find the nether portion, so we went ahead and explored it. And while trying to deal with the blazes shooting at us, I actually managed to find some obsidian, which I would use for an enchantment table later on. And there was an elite piglin who managed to hit me for 3 hearts in one shot, but I was able to put him down luckily. And then I came across his little brother who did not get spared by any means. There was also ancient debris that I was able to find from both exposed netherrack and in chest. And I was searching through another chest and I started to get hit, so I exited and there were multiple piglins chasing after me, including an elite one. So I started to run and I got nervous, so I wasn't able to tower up. And then I got caught up in soul sand and they shot me to death, avenging their little baby cousin. I kitted up once again and painstakingly ran the 1,000 blocks back. I desecrated my own gravestone to get my things back, and in a nearby chest I randomly found a bunch of wither skulls that we would use to spawn the wither later on. And now the rest of the time we spent here, I didn't die anymore and nothing else really noteworthy happened, so eventually we just made our way back. And on the way back, my companion had some chance cubes that we obviously had to open. And these chance cubes spawn these weird looking wolves, and I wish I had the audio for this point because I remember how loud our call got when we were trying to see what looked weird about them. And surviving that, we opened another chance cube which had some skeletons flying around on bats, but they were more annoying than they were difficult. My companion then gave me some chance cubes for me to open, and I opened one and it put me in a cage with a bunch of bats, and the barbarian in me just started attacking them right away. And then I read the text and realized that is not at all what I had to do. I had to guess how many there were, so I made my guess and I was pretty close and I was only off by 45. I opened another cube and I was put into another maze, but this time around I was not fortunate enough to find the side and I perished inside. My companion opened up another chance cube and we were granted a chest that we were told had collectibles inside of it, but that just turned out to be a complete lie, and instead we were both just blown up for our greed. We opened up the remaining ones and Herobrine joined our game, but he quickly left after he realized how powerful both of his opponents are. I brazenly opened up one last cube in the middle of our base and that spawned some nether jellyfishes. But I just let them be as I had to go to attend to my chickens who were just getting busy the whole time we were gone. My companion forced my hand to deal with them though, but he awarded me with some honey cake after, so it wasn't that bad. I then had the bright idea to have the chickens connected to a diamond chest via a hopper to really maximize the idle production of them. So that's what I started to do for all of the chickens, and it looked way cleaner this way now in my opinion. And for chickens like the iron one, it produced iron nuggets instead of iron, so I made this machine which would automatically take the nuggets and turn them into ingots. For neither one of us doing research into this mod pack, I would say we were doing a phenomenal job. My companion then came over and made us this storage system that could hold a bunch of stuff, and we could even craft in the same interface. And on a side note, with all of the weaker chicken I had, I just put them into this hole that I made and put them down. They outlived their purpose of making chickens with superior genetics, and they were now used for their delicious white meat instead. And with so many more chicken variants to unlock and then upgrade, I kept on doing just that. I also was expanding our area in the meantime too. And I grew tired of using the whole method to dispose of chickens, so I made a trash can and just threw all of them into there. And I don't know where they went because my companion and I never had to replace the trash bag whenever it got full. Maybe they just started eating each other. And on the other side of our inventory space, I put down some diamond furnaces, smokers, and blast furnaces, but we soon upgraded to a full wall of just diamond furnaces, not only because it was significantly faster this way, but we were simply just becoming too rich and we didn't want to be in the same light as you plebeians. And the next time we logged on, I immediately turned to my chickens as there is still much work to be done. I kept at it and I made sure to keep an extra chicken of each variant in case something happened, and that way I wouldn't have to go through the whole process again. I never ended up having to do that, so that's pretty good, but now I just had to do a few finishing touches, but we pretty much had all the chickens ranging from oak logs to netherite and even lava and water. I was then able to make my companion and I a full set of netherite armor, and I upgraded some of my tools to netherite too, but it was now time for me to explore some new stuff, so I went ahead and made a pulverizer which was used to smash items into other items, but I couldn't use it right now as it required a power source which was able to be generated with a dynamo, and we definitely had more than enough coal to power everything, and now we were able to turn logs into sawdust. I then took a considerable amount of time to look through the quest log to determine which direction I should go, because when you do no research about anything in the mod pack and you haven't done it before, all of this could get really confusing. And this is another time where I wish I had audio, because I want to see what my companion was doing, and in true men fashion, we just started hitting each other. I was able to get him pretty weak, and I stopped attacking him, and he unknowingly backed up off the ledge trying to get some space away from me. I was then able to make a netherite destructor hammer, which mines in a 5x5x5 area, and this was the first and only time I've ever been able to make it throughout all the mod packs, because as much as I love mining, 3 blocks of netherite is quite difficult to obtain, but in this world, that was so incredibly light. After all that, I thought to go ahead and go through with the quest to make a mob farm, but I was especially having trouble with getting the XP jelly babies that I needed for a recipe. I made the mold for them, but I guess I forgot how to read. It literally told me that I would need to use it in the XP solidifier, so I tried a myriad of ways to use them, obviously none of them being correct, but thankfully I was eventually able to regain my reading comprehension and I was able to make the XP babies. I then used the nutritious chicken feed on chicken to I guess blow it up, but at least I was able to make a golden egg from its demise. And with this golden egg, you could go ahead and use it on some farm lamb in order to transform it. So I placed some dirt down, but I didn't have a hoe to till the dirt, so I went ahead and made a simple netherite one to use, and just like that, we now had some dirt that would actively spawn passive animals. I then needed to take a cotton swab and clean an animal's ear with it in order to get a U swab, and with the U swab I can make a different type of chicken feed, and this one allowed you to sacrifice a chicken and get a spawn egg of the animal whose DNA you used. That way you could put it into an entity spawner that allowed you to have a mob farm for a specific entity, and if you're confused, don't worry because you are not the only one. As you can see, there are so many animals flooding our once desolate stone cave, so I chose to break the delightful dirt to stop the production of so many animals. I made the last chicken feed and I fed it to yet another unsuspecting chicken, and this time around I got a rotten egg. Reading the quest log, it told me that it would spawn hostile mobs, so we took some precautions on not getting overrun. We were confused to why they weren't spawning, and obviously it's because our torch was preventing them from doing so. So we broke it and they started to spawn in fast. I experimented with a mob masher that I already had and it definitely put in some work. And that version of the mob masher was just the base variant with no upgrades. There were plenty of things I could put on it to make it even better. I did some more testing, like using an absorption hopper in order to fill a tank up with XP, and then I used the mob fan, which would push the hostile mobs into the masher. So now that I had a very rough idea on how the mob masher and its components work, I decided to build a fully functional mob farm. I placed down 5 fans to cover each one of the dreadful dirt blocks, but thanks to upgrades, I learned that one max out fan would be more than sufficient. And I wanted to make the mob farm look good since I was going to be building it in the same room where I've been doing everything so far, so I was going to be using stone bricks for it. And I went to pick up the mob masher that I was using to test, and it definitely worked pretty well. I mean, it one-shot me while I was wearing full armor. That meant these regular mobs weren't going to be any challenge for it. And since the mob masher already had the beheading upgrade on it, I was actually able to get my own decorative head to spruce up our cave. Seeing this, I then of course had to get my companion to go and get beheaded too, that way we could both have our heads being displayed somewhere. But back to the mob farm, I built a design that I thought would work. I was thinking that the mobs would be pushed from the fan right on top of the masher, their XP would be stored in this XP tank, and their loot would be sorted into the chest nice and easily. But as you can see, the mobs weren't exactly cooperative in this idea of mine. I don't know exactly what I was thinking. I guess I was allergic to being smart this day, but when I was breaking the trial mob farm, there was obviously a bunch of mobs just ready to hurt me, so much to the point where I had to hit a tactical retreat. And another problem I encountered was that the slimes would spawn and I did not make it big enough for them to fall down. And we had some fun thinking of how to fix all of these problems. We were being pretty stupid with all of our designs, as we still had slimes clogging up the area and we had some spiders crawling around too. I had another brilliant idea about changing the designs where I just put the mob mashers on the ground that they would spawn in, that way they couldn't avoid it. But then my companion and I put our 3 brain cells together and figured out that we could just get rid of the mobs dropping down to a different level and instead just have the mob masher on the same level they spawned in, and the fan would just blow the mobs directly into the masher. And since the absorption hopper had such a large radius, I was still able to collect the items and XP from the safe area just beneath the contraption. And with being so spent from using all of that brain power, I just put a simple trap door and some ladders down in order to access that area. And now that we had an XP farm, obviously we needed something to use it on, so next up I wanted to make an enchantment table area. But first I needed to patch up the area, and after that I went ahead and stuck to a stone brick design, and building something like this is definitely much more up my alley, so this project took significantly less time. And I went ahead and put our heads on this armor stand to add some life to the area. So then of course I went ahead and maxed everything out, both my armor and my tools, and one thing that was unbeknownst to me was that vanilla Minecraft never actually had protection 5, and instead that was actually added by mods. And sometime not even like 30 minutes later, I went to go check on how the mob farm was doing, and it was doing pretty well actually. The chests were already full, and there was a bunch of instruments in there just taking up space, but I didn't really care too much about that as we didn't really need any of the mob drops anyway, just the XP is what I was mainly after. And it was this far in that I realized that there was a button to put the UI into dark mode, and this was just way easier on my eyes, and I think it just looks way better. I told my companion about my new findings, and he claimed he already knew of this feature and just chose to gatekeep this crucial information. And here's where I went really hard about learning new tech. First, I made a magma crucible and I put some glowstone in it in order to make energized glowstone, and I made augments for the dynamo to make it both more efficient and more fast. And with the energized glowstone, I actually didn't end up using any of it. I thought I would need it for something, but I stood incorrect. So I just moved on and I made a pyrolyzer that would use fuel and turn oak logs into oil. I then made an engineer's workbench because I needed it to make components for a garden cloche. And the reason I was making this garden cloche was because even though we had all of these other resources, our food supply wasn't exactly stable by any means. We had enough chicken to last us for now, but it wasn't going to last forever. And this garden cloche was going to be able to idly grow carrots, which we'd be able to turn into golden carrots. I then made what was called a metallurgic infuser to turn some iron into enriched iron, and then I would turn this into steel grit. Then I would take the steel grit and smelt it, which would allow me to get steel ingots. And the reason I did all of this was that way I could make basic universal cables, which would allow me to bring power to the garden cloche. And after many YouTube videos, the garden cloche was now producing us food. And in hindsight, I could have just used the dirt that spawned passive animals and maybe started a specific animal farm, or I could even just have the roost produce chickens and then I would kill them with my looting sword, but I didn't think of any of that, so that's why we're here now. And I apologize if it seems like I'm just skipping from one thing to one thing, and that's simply because I am. I don't really have any idea what I'm doing, and I'm just haphazardly stumbling my way forwards, and it's kind of working for me. I mean, I've made advancements that I had no idea how I got to in the first place. It's all just falling into place real nicely. And a good thing about these universal cables is that I would be able to route power between multiple machines only using one dynamo, and I wouldn't have to route power from the dynamo directly anymore. And with this, I would be able to power this latex processing unit, and I would take the fluid latex I have had running for quite a while now, and now I'd actually be able to turn it into the latex material itself. I took a break to see what my companion was doing, and he was actually working on a train which would allow us to travel to the nether section and even the ender section later on, and this would obviously be way faster than running there on foot. I made several more fluid extractors to speed up the collection of latex, and with the latex processing unit, I had tiny dry rubbers which I needed 9 of to make 1 dry rubber, and smelting that would give me 1 plastic. I then made this dissolution chamber which allowed me to make complex recipes. I first had to make this pity machine frame, and that eventually allowed me to use it and make a simple machine frame. And then I made a dripper which would allow water to drip down onto some stone beneath it, and eventually it would turn it into iron ore. And now I would need to get a silk touch tool and carefully pick it up. And my companion beckoned me over to come and test out the train with him, and man was it fast. But I started to experience severe lag, so I set my own game to spectator mode real quick, and I peeked inside the farm, and I definitely found the culprit for my frame loss. So I just used a quick command to clear the items off the ground, and my PC took a sigh of relief immediately. And this would be something that I would have to do every once in a while whenever my PC started to crap itself. I then went ahead and slaughtered all of the animals just to place some more delightful dirt down and have them come back. But this was intended as I made a mob slaughter factory, and this would kill mobs and destroy their drops in XP, instead generating some nasty liquid meat and pink slime. And for some reason, I guess passive mobs generate more pink slime than hostile ones, so that's why I just didn't use the mob farm that I already had. I fenced off the area to prevent any animals from running amok, and then I connected the factory with some power lines. And by no means did my setup look pretty, but I was not worried about that at the moment. What was most important to me was that it worked, and it definitely did. I then attached a tank to collect the foul substances, and if you're wondering why I needed to do this in the first place, it's because I would need the pink slime to continue to progress the machine frames, and now that I had everything, I would be able to make an advanced machine frame. Oh yeah, so I needed a dripped iron ore to make a laser, which would use energy to generate ores and fluids. I never really ended up using the thing, so that's yet another thing that was a complete waste of time doing. And it's been some months since this was recorded, so it's like I'm learning all of this again with you guys. And after combining multiple swords, I finally had enough XP to allow me to combine my 2 swords and create this absolute beauty of a weapon. I then made this lapidary dynamo to replace the other one, and this one instead uses diamonds for fuel. And if I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know if this one was better than the dynamo that uses coal, but I didn't even care about that, to be honest. We were just so rich to where this didn't even make a dent in our pockets. I then made a hopper and filled it with some diamonds, that way it could just constantly generate energy. My companion once again motioned me over to join him on a train, and I got excited thinking he was talking about a different type of train. But I wasn't let down too much, as this was the first time we were both stepping into the end section, and that excitement was short-lived as he had other stuff to do still, so I had to run all the way back home. And unintentionally, this train did another great thing for me, as it allowed for minerals that I haven't mined before to be exposed, and with my fortune paxel, I went ahead and loaded up on all of them. And back home, I spent quite some time crafting all of these different lenses for the laser drill, so without knowing it, I was just wasting time. And after a while, I decided it was now time to tidy everything up, so I started to break everything. And cool enough, you can actually silk touch the delightful dirt, and that way I wouldn't have to do the whole process over again to get it. Firstly, I made sure both sides of the room were of equal length, and I broke all of the ugly cobblestone and smoothed out the backdrop. And this was because I wanted this whole wall to be full of cables and store all of the power we could ever possibly need for all of the machines. And now I am going to skip over a lot of the grinding I did for this section because it's pretty much the same things I did before, just at a higher level. There is a new machine though that I had to use, but I have to use it again later on, and that's when I'll go over it. Now I didn't go over this until now, but in order to power our inventory system, we had these magmators in the back providing power, and we had to come and fill it with lava pretty frequently. So I went ahead and replaced it with one of the diamond dynamos that I've been using, and from now for the rest of the playthrough, I did not have to fill it up again. And I believe this was completely unnecessary and overkill, but I filled the entire wall with the dynamos, and I even filled a hopper of diamonds for each of them. I then put a diamond chest on the hoppers, and I did not come close to filling any of the chests. I seriously couldn't believe that I even put a diamond chest there, suggesting that I was going to have them filled up at some point. But now I had a full row of ultimate universal cables, which had a much higher capacity than the basic cables, and I just kept rinsing and repeating until I eventually had a full wall of them. And then I just spent some time putting down all of the machines I previously made, and it was much cleaner this time around. I then decided to move the auto hammers over here because there was times where I needed to run over and grab some cobblestone, and I just couldn't be bothered to keep going all that distance. And this only increased the amount of unresponsiveness I felt in this area, but it wasn't too bad overall. And after all this time, my companion had finally finished the train, and now it was able to take us to and from the whole way. Next up, I started work on the Botania mod because I had my eyes set out on a specific item. So I first placed down some stone and oak logs next to the pure daisies, and over time they would turn into living rock and living wood respectively. I then threw some petals into the petal apothecary to make an endoflame, which would generate mana from fuels. And it took me a while to understand how to link everything together, but once I did, we were preem. I continued to learn about Botania and how to progress through it. I kept at it even when it was confusing, but I was eventually super excited to have made my first rune. And then I made the botanical brewery, and with that I was able to make a tainted blood necklace, which I then imbued with strength 2. And I didn't think the strength 2 necklace worked because I didn't see any effect pop up on my screen like you would when you drink a potion. And after doing some research literally right now, I now know that in order for the effect to be applied, I would need a mana source in my inventory for it to work, and I never once did that. Instead, I just convinced myself that maybe the effect didn't appear, but I was still receiving the buffs. So essentially, all of that work was for nothing once again. After my delusional idiocracy, I then set my sights on something that seemed to be very powerful, and we were not far off from achieving it. It was called the Philosopher's Stone, and the only thing missing was the Nether Star. So I grabbed all of the Wither Skulls that we had, along with some soul sand, and my companion and I took the train far away from our base. And thankfully my companion just got done finishing his train project, and you may ask, why did the dumb fuck take so long to finish the train? Well, all of the finer things in life require both time and an extraordinary amount of effort, and he was simply just ironing out every detail. But I think the way the train looks is pretty nice. I mean, we have these nice cushioned seats to sit on, and we have this cute little slime as our train conductor, taking us to and from all of our destinations. We spawned the Wither, and the two of us easily made work of it. And even though we were both kitted out, it was still surprising for me to see how easy this was going for us. And this is where I was also convincing myself that it was because of the Strength 2 buff that I did not have. So we just continued to put down Wither after Wither. And if you watch my prominence video, you would know that my favorite part of that video was this clip right here. And hearing about how much this boss was whooping me, my friend decided to teleport to me and help me out. And this birthed one of the funniest moments to us that we quote quite often.
I'm here.
And I swear we weren't clip farming, but we had a very similar situation occur in this mod pack. And once again, thanks to my companion for having the following video and audio recorded. He's proving to be a better YouTuber than I am, and he doesn't even have a video out yet.
You've been fucking up our production, boy. Nah, I gotta teach you a lesson, teach all the other ones. You sit there in that corner, boy. You gonna take this.
It came back. It came back. It makes its appearance in every mod pack we do. And even though my companion wasn't here now, I was still able to withstand the onslaught of the Wither by myself. Now if this was the Bedrock Wither, a different ending probably would have occurred. And after that, I tried to mine up to see if there was going to be an end city, but all I managed to find was some endstone bricks. So I hopped back on the train with my companion, and we headed back home with 7 more nether stars than we previously had before. And with one of the nether stars, I made a beacon which I was going to place in the center of our base, and in true big baller fashion, I was making the base out of netherite blocks, and this would be otherwise impossible without the godly netherite chicken, as this would require over 1476 netherite ingots, which is crazy to get legitly. But after all of that, the beacon wouldn't power up. I tried replacing it and nothing still. I tried a smaller scale beacon and it still wouldn't power up, so I just scrapped the idea and accepted my wasted time and effort once again. I'm just joking. One Google search later, and I saw that I would need to mine all the way to the top of the cave, and with that small change, it was now working at its maximum capacity. I settled on haste 2 for any excavating that we would have to do to our base in the future. I then made the Philosopher's Stone and used our coal to make alchemical fuel, which you could use to make even better fuel. And because of our chickens, we already had a good amount of coal already stockpiled. I kept grinding and eventually reached the point to where I was able to make literal dark matter. And now if you look at these recipes here, you could see how much grinding was going to be needed in order to progress throughout the mod pack. I saw that you can make armor out of the dark matter, which is supposedly unbreakable and very resistant to damage, but in order to make it, you would need the drop from the boss Mother Silverfish, and we were not there yet. My companion did some more exploring on his own, and he was able to find an end city, so he came back and scooped me, and together we were off to go explore this new section. And on the map, I saw that this area was actually below us, so I had to mine down in order to reach it. There, I was immediately attacked by shulkers, so I was constantly in the air, and I was obviously not able to get them with my sword from here, so I headed home quickly in order to make the both of us some infinity bows, and we had more than enough XP stored in order to easily do that. With 2 god bows in hand, I gave one to my companion, and we started to clear out the area. And by no means were they a challenge, but they certainly were bothersome, and they were eating at my armor durability ability constantly, but thankfully I prepared for this long ago, and in my backpack I had an anvil, but I didn't have the XP required to repair it, but thankfully I had all of the necessary materials to make new armor. We continued to destroy any shulker boxes so we could explore the area in peace, or that was the plan until the both of us realized how riddled this place was with them, so we just decided to start grabbing the loot instead. I didn't really see any chests, so we had a mini competition to see who could grab the ender dragon head first, and thankfully the shulkers were giving my companion quite the trouble, and me too, but I was able to pearl down and grab the ender dragon head, only at the small price of breaking my legs, ankles, and feet. I'm super competitive, so I was extremely pleased with myself for winning this meaningless competition. Back home, I rubbed it in the face of my companion that I was the one with the ender dragon head, and I put it on to see how it looked. I think I looked pretty good with it on, and I should have seen how it complemented my expensive suit, but I didn't think about that at the time. Then my companion gave me access to spells via a spell book. I only knew some base level spells, so it wasn't too much of a use to me right now, but he would end up teaching me more later on, and then it would become more useful. I then remembered that we could make netherite furnaces, so I started to craft all of them up, and while I was doing that, my companion told me to look at him, and while he does look pretty good with the ender dragon head, I think I wore it better. What do you guys think? I placed down all of the netherite furnaces, and I think they look way cooler now because the aesthetic is a little bit more dark, and then I decided that we could replace the diamond chests with obsidian ones to fit the theme. And if I'm being honest, because of how much the inventory system could hold, we did not use these chests at all, but at least everything looked way cleaner now. I then thought I was going to liven up the place and have it not look so bland, so I added some detail to the entrance walkway. And then I started on the cobble generator hammer area, and then I realized that I messed up the placement and I should have put it one block back, and because of my mess up, I didn't want to decorate anymore, I just wasn't in the mood. And just quickly look at how much space my netherite backpack holds. I was now kind of lost on what to do, so I spent some time just looking through all of the possible quests, and I guess one of us broke the sign which prevented the wandering trader from spawning, so now that he was here, I saw that he would trade people's heads for emeralds, so I made sure to grab each one of them and then I placed them down on this wall. The wandering trader also had a globe for sale, so I put it down and I started to spin it, and we both agreed wherever it landed was where we had to go in real life, to which the both of us said Japan at the same time, and that definitely brought a smile to my face. And later that night, I would write a fanfiction where the two of us would hook up for the first time in a love hotel in our boys' trip to Japan, and then we would both text our girlfriends that we're breaking up with them, afterwards spending our lives together in perfect harmony living in countryside Japan. A little bit after that, my companion was showing off his new magic to me, and I decided to show him why a good old sword is better than any magic, and I slowly walked him down, putting an end to his wizardry. And next time my companion and I logged on, I continued progressing through all of these technological advancements, and I don't know what the hell I'm looking at now. Pretty much all of the knowledge I gained from this playthrough has left my brain now, and I started to add more universal cables because I guess 200 million units of energy wasn't enough for whatever I was doing. And while I was pushing back the chest in the cobblestone generator, my companion came over and showed me the magical advancements he made, and he shared with me several new spells that he made. He then also wanted to show me more stuff that he learned in the Cray mod, and I still didn't understand any of it, so I just sat there and smiled and nodded once again. And I was almost crushed to death by these wheels, and in my state of panic, I didn't think about using the ender pearls in my inventory, but thankfully he stopped it before I was crushed to death. I mean, if I wanted to be crushed to death, I would have just summoned Chun-Li and her mommy thighs to do it. And like I said, I don't really remember a lot of the information that I once learned, as this whole playthrough was recorded like 7 months ago, so everything's a little bit foggy, and I guess I needed this contraption that my companion built, as I spent quite some time just using these wheels to crush a bunch of gravel. I then finished pushing back the cobblestone generators and replacing the chests with their obsidian counterparts, and on a quick side note, my companion went AFK and he got slimed to death, and I immediately went over to avenge him, but I also just wanted to see what equipment he was rocking, so I broke his gravestone and compared our equipment, and mine was substantially better. And next up was making an energy condenser, which converts items into EMC, and then takes that EMC and turns it into another item. And all of that sounds complicated, but it's not. But in order to do that, I would need over 5 million energy, and I think I have just enough for that. But outputting that amount of energy was a different story. I needed to use an energizing rod, and the lower tier ones obviously don't put as much energy out as the higher tier ones. So I went ahead and upgraded the basic rod all the way to the nitro one. And there's just something so satisfying about seeing all these ingredients getting shot with a laser and then turning into one item. And after much grinding later, I now had the high level energy condenser in my possession. I wasted no time and I quickly moved on to making energy collectors, and my companion was here while I made the energy condenser Mark II and we tested it out together for the first time. We had a little trouble figuring it out at first, but we finally found out how to use it. So you would put the item that you would want into the top left, and you would put an item with the energy count into the left hand side, and depending on how much energy you gave and the item that you want duplicated, all of it would come out on the right hand side. And just for a stack of diamond blocks, you could get a stack of enchanted golden apples. We also then got a bunch of nether stars, and we did some exploring through our items, and so far only certain items had the ability to be duplicated, so the storage disk for our inventory slots wasn't able to be duplicated as it had no energy. And this was obviously great for the tedious farms, but sadly, even though these mending books have EMC, the books that would get pumped out aren't able to be used, so I just went ahead and tossed those in the trash can. My companion started to make more progress in the Ars Nova mod pack, and he needed some more snowballs, and this is another part where I wish I had audio because my companion here had a brain fart. Like I said, he needed snowballs and he duplicated them, but he was biting off way more than he could chew. He duplicated what seemed to be an infinite amount of them, and he was just grabbing all of the snowballs and putting them in a chest nearby, and he wanted me to help him. So I did, and I simply just took out the item that was constantly being duplicated, and he was surprised when he was able to grab all the snowballs without any more popping up. He might still be there to this day if I didn't intervene. My companion had one of his great ideas, and he made it to where he set up a netherite chicken which would generate the netherite ingots, and he set it up to a crafter which would then turn them into netherite blocks, and that would idly produce energy for the chest to have enough energy for whenever we needed something duplicated. And now while that was a great idea, there was a little problem that whenever you only needed a small amount of something, you would more than likely end up just filling the whole thing. So while I really only wanted 10 or so roosts for some more netherite chickens, I now had over 2,000 of them. And then later on, I had a similar incident happen and now had over 2,000 slime balls. And what's really crazy is how much grinding there is to do in this mod pack. Like, I've done a good amount of grinding so far, but look at these extreme crafting recipes, and there's way more crazier recipes than these ones that I'm showing right now. My companion got lucky from something, I believe is one of those chance cubes, and he had a sword that had unbreaking and looting level 25 and a Thanos level of sharpness, and I think we tried duplicating it or something because we now had 2 of them, and for some reason I wasn't worthy enough to pick it up, and it just teased me by sitting on the floor. And if you're curious to how much damage it does a lot, as it one-shot me when I was wearing full protection netherite armor. I kept making these energy collectors and upgrading them, and honestly I don't think I ever correctly used them, but I wanted to take a break from all of this and see how much damage that Thanos source did, so I took the main one from my friend and I went ahead and summoned the Wither just to 3-shot him. And when I came back, my companion had made this contraption, and now there should be a good flow of energy constantly producing for duplication, and I think it looked pretty good with the heavy duty glass in front of it. And next time I logged on, my companion had shown me what he did all by himself. He went ahead and filtered out all of the bad items from the mob spawner, and he had some more spells ready for me to learn. He also had it set up to where I can have a familiar of my own, and the bookworm reduced the cost of the spells that I cast, so that's what I chose. And one of my favorites was a spell that allowed me to summon a horse for me to ride, and this way I could save space for easier navigation than having multiple slingshots in my inventory. And like I previously said, we didn't do any type of research into the mod pack, and all of these hours in, we just found out that it had Ultimine in here, which is one of my favorite mods, and now I had binded it just now. And I even found an easier way to navigate using the spellbook. I had a glyph that would allow me to propel myself forward at the cost of mana, and it was pretty good. I then went ahead and explored the areas that I was too cowardly to explore before, and I found nothing of interest. So I just kept going and traveling in the stone ring until I eventually came across the boss dungeon, and I was at the point where the mobs didn't provide any real challenge for me, and my companion also made his way over to me, and the mobs weren't of any challenge to him either. We continued to explore the dungeon, and of course I had to grab every useless item that I could get my hands on, and we eventually made our way to the main part of the dungeon, and these barrels littered on the side of it weren't just for decoration, as they also had some stuff inside of them. So of course I spent my time breaking them and looking through all of the loot, and thankfully I had 3 netherite backpacks to support my looting addiction, which is almost as bad as my addiction to gooning. Now the best find I managed to come across was this electric bow, which stores energy and it has infinity and unbreaking and power 11, and when my backpacks were all filled up, I went home to depot everything. Seeing that I was back home, my companion had me come help out with a project of his, so I took this sacrificial knife he gave me and I repeatedly cut myself until I was on the verge of dying. Then I would eat a golden apple to heal and repeat the process. There was a few times where my companion was too eager to cut himself and he ended up dying. The best part about all of this is that my companion never ended up finishing this project, so all of this self-inflicted torture was for nothing. I then made Kleinstars because I thought they would be able to power my bow by themselves, but I think you have to charge the Kleinstars and then it would be able to provide energy that way, but I didn't know that, and now I was just sitting on multiple of the most expensive Kleinstars. You know, a lot of my ignorance this playthrough could be solved by googling things, and I don't know why I chose to google some things and not others and just leave it be when something didn't seem to be working. I then got something called neuron collectors and went over to duplicate them, which was very expensive to do, and each collector generates a single tiny pile of neurons every 6 minutes or so, and with 9 piles of neurons I can make 1 neutronium nugget, and with 9 of those nuggets I can make 1 neutronium ingot, so you could just see how tedious this endgame content was. Next up, I scavenged some chance cubes that we had in our storage and we headed far from our base to open all of them. And once again, this is a part of the recording where I wish I knew how to be a proper YouTuber and have all of my audio sorted out, because there were some interesting moments to say the least. A few interesting moments were when a whole woodland mansion spawned underground, and there was also a boss fight where I had to fight myself, and that was pretty cool. At first we were in an underwater dome, but out of nowhere it just despawned, and I swear the zombie was significantly weaker now too. And then from there I was easily able to put down my alter ego. And learning from our previous experiences, there were some more seemingly normal looking wolves, but without hesitation I started to euthanize them before they all turned into creepers. And I broke another chance cube and someone named Geister put a curse on me. I didn't know what that meant, but I saw my helmet on the ground and checked to find out that I now had on a slime head which had both the curse of binding and the curse of vanishing. So I picked up my netherite helmet and I'd eventually be able to put it on again once I died. I broke another chance cube and that summoned the Pig of Destiny, and he was suffocating to death, so I broke the blocks which were killing him to help him out, and I curiously punched the pig, and that turned out to be a bad decision as I was immediately smitten for my insolence, but at least I didn't have the slime head on my face anymore. It was getting quite late and we still had around half a stack of chance cubes left, so we put down all of them and just started blasting through them. We even found Dan TDM's Dr. Trevosaurus, and that was cool seeing him as he was a YouTuber that I watched pretty regularly while growing up. It was pretty hectic doing all of these one after the other as I couldn't properly process everything was happening. I was given another boss fight, but this time it was just an evil witch, and my companion kept breaking cubes and it was pretty overstimulating if I'm being honest. There was just a bunch of regular mobs interfering, carpet was flooding my screen, and there were prime TNTs going off, but I just kept eating enchanted golden apples and I managed to survive, and eventually I was able to win yet another 1v1. There was no shortage of chaos as we kept breaking the cubes, and there were some bees which stung my companion to yet another one of his deaths, but I wasn't as safe as I didn't know I had to type the answer to this easy math question that was on my screen, and I was blown to smithereens for not answering fast enough. There was also an invisible zombified piglin which was giving the two of us adventurers some crazy work. We kept breaking the chance cubes despite all of the ensuing chaos, and I failed to find the exit to yet another maze and I died once again. My companion also felt the divine protection from the Pig of Destiny, and this pig was getting on my nerves as I was trying to fight off these flying witches, and the pig jumped in front of my face and I paid for his trolling. So much was happening that the server actually crashed. And despite how tired we were, we logged back onto the server and finished the mission of breaking all of the chance cubes, and I kept seeing Herobrine join and leave the world, so I was actually surprised to see a version of Herobrine that had 500 hearts and was here to stay. But thankfully we were able to put down the Minecraft legend, and with that we had no more chance cubes, and thankfully so, because that took a while and my armor was almost broken. The next time that we logged on, my companion and I knew this was going to be our last time playing this mod pack, so we already knew what we had to do. First, I grabbed these nuclear grenades that we had managed to stockpile somehow, and then I enchanted my Archmage armor because it was too expensive to repair my netherite armor at this point. And while the Archmage armor wasn't as good, it still wasn't the worst thing in the world, so I fully enchanted the set. I then stocked up on enchanted golden apples and we headed over to the boss dungeon. And with my Archmage armor, I headed over using the Excel glyph, which I was able to use more frequently thanks to the armor set bonuses of spells costing less mana. And I was a little upset when I used the nuclear grenade for the first time, and it warned me that it wasn't to be used at close range, and I thought I was far enough, but I guess not. And now that I was back, my companion did the ritual to summon the Modpack's boss, the Mother Silverfish. I originally just towered up and shot the boss with my bow from a distance, but my companion was down in the trenches, so I had to join him. And I was warned about a thief silverfish which would steal your equipped weapon, and one of them mugged me for the first time. And easily enough, we defeated the boss the first time around. We had enough resources to summon the boss again, so we did just that, and it was the same thing more or less. And I hate these little thief silverfishes because once again, they stole my sword and then they also stole my paxel from me. But thankfully, I was able to get both of them back this time around, and we were able to defeat the boss 2 times in a row. My companion was gone for a little bit, so I just used the idle time to practice my archery. We had enough for a 3rd time, and my companion was able to do a stupid amount of damage thanks to his Thanos sword, and I was just throwing toothpicks at the boss with my bow from the air. And I don't remember how I was able to levitate like this, but I was able to do so. And once again, the thief silverfish struck again, and it managed to put down the 2 of us. And I guess we spawned the boss for a 4th time since we both died to the thief silverfish, and I had this little tower that I shot some nearby mobs from, and we also shot the boss from here also. We also just rained down nuclear grenades, and this was way longer but significantly safer. And I think the mother silverfish has the ability to jump high in the air or something, and we shot it to death while it was eye to eye with us. We headed back home and reveled in our victory. My companion was pretty much tapped out with the mod pack and really wasn't enjoying it anymore, and I was also done with grinding the rest of the endgame content, so this is pretty much where our story ends pretty abruptly. Overall, I had a pretty fun time playing this mod pack. Now, I wouldn't prefer it as much as fantasy mod packs like Prominence or Dark RPG, you know, ones of that nature, but I think it's because it's so much different and needed me to focus on other aspects that I normally wouldn't do. That's why I enjoyed it so much, because it was such a different change of pace than what I was used to. But there we have it. That was our experience playing Stoneblock, and if you're still here, I really appreciate you watching the video until the end. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, or snarky remarks, leave them below and I'll get back to you. Thank you once again, and have a great rest of your day.